All right, coming up next, we have a man who needs absolutely no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway because that is our job. He is the man who puts the max in maximalist.
Please welcome Max Keiser, founder at Zonte Capital on Conquering Time and Space. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. More, 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 more! Woo! Woo! How y'all doing? First of all, a big shout out and congratulations to Jose Lopez, who is now, Jose is now the first Bitcoin diplomat thanks for some lights. And Satoshi said, let there be light. And there was light. Jose is now the first diplomat in the world, Bitcoin diplomat, representing El Salvador in Lugano. Now, President Bukele has plans to open up essentially diplomatic outposts all over the world. We're looking to spread the message of El Salvador. The El Salvador model of financial freedom will be spread around the world with these diplomatic offices. So Jose is just the first of many. We're looking at Austin, Texas, soon to have its own Salvadoran embassy, Bitcoin embassy. So look for that to your local neighborhood. So that's one of the many things that are in the pipeline in El Salvador to bring financial freedom around the world. The model of financial freedom. People in El Salvador are extremely happy. The president's popularity is over 85%. He announced he's running for president in 2024. 93% of the population is saying, yeah, of course we want this president because he brought us freedom. Freedom from the IMF. Freedom from the terrorist bankers. He gave individual financial sovereignty. And the people on the street are visibly and emotionally happy. They've been liberated from the violence that was sent to them from the United States. MS-13 was cooked up in Los Angeles, in the prison system in Los Angeles. After the Civil War that the U.S. financed in El Salvador, a lot of people ended up in the United States, ended up in California, ended up in those prisons. They become gangsters. Then Bill Clinton releases them, and they end up going back to El Salvador, and they do gang shit. And so the country became ridden with gangs. So Bitcoin changes the way you think. It's now been a year since the country made Bitcoin legal tender. Bitcoin is 100% understood and known in El Salvador. The adoption rate is going up every single month, but people understand the mindset of Bitcoin and individual sovereignty. Part of the Bitcoin's mindset is an intolerance to violence, an intolerance to the IMF, because Bitcoin demonetizes violence and it monetizes peace and love. Right? Fuck bank. The president understands this. The president's had a raise of consciousness. So what did he do? He said, we're going to be intolerant of this violence that was sent to us from the United States. So he's gone out and he's fixed the violence problem. Because of the eradication of the gangs, which was 20% of GDP, Salvadoran economy is growing. It's growing up 10.3% last year. It'll hit double digits again this year. Imagine that. $6 billion in a $28 billion economy went to extortion to the gangs. It's now been reinvested, going right back into the pockets of everybody in El Salvador, including the pupusa sellers, 5,000 of them. Suddenly got a 20% raise. They got a 20% tax hike. Simply by getting by the terrorists, get them out of the country, go back to the United States where you came from, you fucking gangsters. We don't need you. How about that for human rights? How about human rights for 7 million Salvadorans? Fucking human rights organizations decrying, oh my God, those prisoners, you didn't give them a foot massage. It's fucking pathetic. The U.S. has no moral authority to lecture any country at any time about anything at this moment in their history. If you look at the region of Central America and Latin America, there have been 15 coups orchestrated by the U.S. Who do you think murdered the priest in San Salvador back in the 80s? The fucking CIA. Do we need that shit? No. Bitcoin gives you the freedom to think freely, gives you the courage to act on your convictions and your morals, because it's perfect money. And perfect money crowds out everything else. Perfect money is a mirror that holds up and you look at yourself for the first time ever in your life. If you like what you see, you're on the right path. If you don't like what you see, you need to get right by Satoshi. You need to understand that the game of fiat money and printing your way out of every problem that comes along and every moral depravity that comes along are over. That's why the Salvadoran model is being exported now around the world. That's why people in the region of Central America, Guatemala and other countries are saying, yeah, we want some of that. We want financial freedom. We want to get rid of the violence. We want to fuck the IMF. Look, the IMF is scared. It's an organization that was designed to rip people off. They don't do anything but steal. This is the original shitcoin. The IMF is nervous about what's happening in El Salvador, because if it works in El Salvador, the whole region's going to go Bitcoin, and therefore so does Latin America, and so does half the world's population. And the IMF is not pleased about this. But the president, emboldened with the moral authority of having perfect money, is rightfully saying, hey, IMF, go fuck yourself. And in no uncertain terms. And that's the right move. And going forward, people say, oh, you know what, you're a Bitcoin maximalist. You're so toxic. There's a great phrase to describe Bitcoin maximalism. Bees don't waste time explaining to flies why honey tastes better than shit. Right? Where's my glasses? Where are my glasses? I don't know. By the way, in 2023, you'll be happy to know there's going to be a John Denver festival in El Salvador. Where's Marta? Marta is the foremost John Denver impersonator in Central America, and he'll be there. It's an incredible no, I'm only joking. Where is Marta? There he is. He's a Salvadoran. He works, I'm not sure what he does, but whenever I see him, he's singing John Denver songs. And I told him we'd have a special festival just for him. So look, maybe we can pull it off. Let's get into some of these high-level notes. I really need my glasses. Someone needs to sing some like game show song. Da 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 da. If I put my jacket on, I'll figure out where I put my glasses. Yes, exactly. That strategy has worked perfectly. I'm back. Thank you. Thank you. All righty. So on the topic of Bitcoin in El Salvador and the ability of Bitcoin to change people's mindsets, this is some of the quotes I'll give you from the president that he tweets, and why we know that Bitcoin is becoming the standard and how it's working its way into the mindset of this beautiful country in Central America. Quote, what has been called by international organizations as the Bitcoin experiment is nothing more than the world watching how mass adoption changes a country's economy. If it's for the good, it's game over for fiat money. El Salvador is a spark that ignites the real revolution. Can anyone argue with that? Does anyone disagree with that? A couple of other tweets from the president. He tweets, often you'll see a three-word tweet, United Fruit Company, okay, which says it all. This is a three-word tweet that is just historically quite significant. It's the United Fruit Company, now known as Chiquita Brands, that gave the region the sobriquet of Banana Republic. As the U.S. corporations have been rampaging through that area, that region for decades, ripping off and colonizing the folks in Central America. So the memory is long. People don't forget this. They don't forget the United Fruit Company, and they understand that Bitcoin is a way to fight back against the colonial interests and the financial terrorism of the banks in Washington, the banks in America, the banks around the world, and the Federal Reserve Bank and other central banks. As I said many years ago, they should have been raising rates a long time ago if they were really honest about maintaining some kind of integrity of their fiat money. But of course, they never did, because they loved the fact that rates were so low that they could print money ad infinitum and pay every stupid program they came over their desk, and to bail out every single mistake, every Ponzi scheme, every corrupt banker, Jamie Dimon, Wells Fargo, Societe Generale, BNP, you name it, they all got bailed out. Every single day it's a bailout, every day, every second of every day with fiat money. Now it's over. As Warren Buffett famously said, quote, "We've got the right to print money." Last time I checked the Constitution, that wasn't listed as one of the rights in the Constitution. As a matter of fact, it very explicitly says that gold is money because it's scarce and it's finite, and it's how you build an economy. You cannot build an economy with fiat money that can be constantly printed on the whims of bureaucrats who are looking to bail out their friends. Not how you build an economy. Why is the United States economy going to shit and Salvador's economy is going up? Because El Salvador's got Bitcoin as hard money, and America's dying under a sea of fiat money. All of the problems can be traced back to fiat money. And when I listen to the politicians talk about inflation, the wages of inflation, the problems of inflation, they mention every single possible problem to cause inflation except printing money. As a matter of fact, their solution for the money printing inflation that they cause is to print more money. CBDCs are just more money printing from central banks. What will happen is CBDCs from these bankrupt governments will go to war with the central banks, and they'll print themselves to death, which is what we want. Bitcoin goes up more and more and more as people seek shelter from the war between central banks and governments to who can print the most money. So inflation is not transitory. It's now a permanent feature of the global economy. The only way out is, as Christine Lagarde has said, Bitcoin is an escape. You're right, Christine. It's an escape from you. Right? President Bukele has tweeted, "Bitcoin is powered by beauty." It's a profound thing to say. Perfect money is perfect because it's aesthetically perfect. The protocol and the incentive model is perfect. It's the Sistine Chapel of money. It's awe-inspiring. The further you go down the rabbit hole, the more your mind changes and the more you face the true North Star of sound money and perfect incentives. You meet yourself on the way down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. You meet your old self. You meet your fiat self. You meet your brainwashed self that believed that somehow printing money all day long was going to solve problems. And it's beautiful in that regard. If you go upstairs to the art gallery, you'll see many fine works of outstanding art inspired by Bitcoin. I'm wearing right now a pin. This is from 10 years ago. This year will be the 10-year anniversary of this famous meme of Bitcoin roller coaster guy. That was part of the beginning of Bitcoin art, the raising of consciousness. When people are excited and their consciousness is raised, they want to express themselves, and they want to express themselves artistically, and they want to connect to other people artistically, and they want to have a human communal experience that uplifts them and takes them closer to Satoshi, otherwise known as God. He sent his son down. We fucking killed him. So he sent Bitcoin instead. This is our last chance. If we don't get it this time. There's a lot of news about aliens right now, right? They're waiting. They're watching. The second we fuck up, they're going to come down here and steal our Bitcoin. Thank you very much.